Hello, I'm Håvard, and I'm going to show you how to validate IFC files in Anker. Look at this. This is Anker. It's in a Chrome window. Anker has projects. One of them is called Ghoul2, which is a project where there's a bunch of IFC files from one deliverable that I've uploaded to the Anker database. All of these IFC files have elements, and all of the elements have properties connected to them in property sets or P sets. And what I want to check if are the properties on my elements or on the elements in the IFC files good enough for me to build from them. So the first thing that I normally do is I go back and look at my tables. A table is a great way to look at all the BIMs, all the BIM elements, all the IFC elements like walls and doors and windows in all of the different files, and then I'm looking at a particular property that is of interest for me, importance even. In this case, the design status is the property, and the NOSSB process is the P set that property lives in, which is a very important property for me because it tells me something about the state of the elements. Whether I can build it or not. So I'm a contractor, and in this case I see that the property design status should have a formatting like MMI and then a number, but I see here clearly that there's a big variation in the formatting that the design team has been using to communicate this value. Some are just numbers, some are text and numbers, some are blank. Actually quite a lot of them are blank, but I'd like to make a report. I'm going to use the validation process inside of Anker to make a simple report that I can send and communicate to my team and talk to the design team about. So to do that, I'm going to go back to the project. There's 5 cards here. There's tables, there's populate, which adds information to any project or BIM in this case. There's automations that can execute a population or a validation based on different rules. We'll get into that some other time. I think it's the good stuff happens here in automation. But now let's just briefly look at the validation, like the power of the validation. And this is something Anker today eats Revit files and IFC files. And you can basically use this process on any of those both native and open BIM formats. I've created a validation rule that's called design status that is going to just do one thing, and that is to check all of the different elements in all of the different files, because I don't have a rule here on when. So I leave this open. That is going to then check on everything. And then I'm going to check on whether that property design status on the P set NOSSB process. And here you can select any project any property that's in the entire project. And then I'm not going to check if the property is a certain value or if it exists. I'm going to check whether or not the formatting of the property is correct. In this case, I'm using the regular expression function here, and I'm using a string basically that checks whether or not it says MMI, which is model maturity index, and then has a number, basically 100 or 200 or 300. Once I've done that, I can save this rule and I can just click the big juicy green button, play, and that is the validation. That is how super simple it is. This shows me that out of all the 15,614 elements in all of those files, 7,771 passed the test, which means that about 50% of all the elements in the entire deliverable has the right formatting. Not necessarily the right value. I mean, some of these values can still be wrong according to the process and what you want to communicate, but at least the formatting, we're checking the formatting in this case. And then there's 5,000, almost 6,000 elements that are failing the test that have either a blank or a wrong value. And then there's almost 2,000 elements that don't have the property connected to them. It's missing. The property is missing. So this is super powerful, and it's extremely simple to set up, and it's surprising that processes like these don't really exist in a very available fashion, let's say that, because the people in the projects who need to know this information, they normally need a simple way of understanding the quality of data. So one thing that we can do here to make it even easier for people to see this is to copy the URL. There's a click button here right in the design status validation report or validation setup, where you can paste that URL into Power BI dashboard and then just live feed this information to anyone in the team who don't even need to access Anker. Lastly, I can add some filters if I want. I'm going to search for IFC entity in addition to files that are hard-coded into the validation report. So if I run another validation report or another validation process, I still see the same information and I still see the same table, but now I can also filter by IFC entity in addition to files. So if I just want to look at landscape architecture and I just want to look at I don't know, controller, okay, there's no elements in that entity on that file, but here you can like drill down into the deliverable. In this case, I see landscape architecture. Oh, landscapes, they're just missing 3 elements in the IFC deliverable that are missing this property, and everything else is correct. And you can even see here down the entity here, it's an IFC building, an IFC store, and an IFC site. And that actually makes sense because those are not model elements. I hope this was interesting. I hope it was clear. We'd love to hear from you if you're interested in testing this. We find it extremely valuable and powerful, and I haven't even talked about population and automation. Get in touch with me or any of my colleagues if you want to see it in action. I'd love to talk to you soon.